Alright, welcome back. In this video we will continue to focus our efforts almost exclusively on the Flappy sprite, because there's a lot more things that we need to do. Now, my project is in the exact same state as it was at the end of the last video, but notice that when I hit the flag, Flappy is still in the downwards position as it was before I stopped the game previously, which is not something that I'm particularly fond of, so let's fix that real quick. So I'm going to go to motion here and I'm going to pull in the point in direction 90, which will make Flappy point towards the right when I hit the flag. So if I hit the flag again, Flappy points in the right direction. So what we did in the last video was that we allowed Flappy to jump and to fall towards the ground, which is the exact point where I want to continue. If Flappy hits the ground, we will want to make Flappy fade out and kick off the start of a new game, because if Flappy hits the ground, the game is over. So for that, we will need to write a new script. So when Flappy receives this start game message, we will add a new script that will constantly check if Flappy has touched the ground. If it touches the ground, it will fade out and it will broadcast a new message signaling other sprites that the game is over. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to events and I'm going to pull in another when I receive start game. So at this point, we are starting two scripts with the same when I receive start game. When we have multiple scripts starting with the same block, they will be executed independently. So both of these scripts will be executed when the sprite receives the start game message. So this second script will wait until Flappy touches the ground, and as soon as it does that, it will stop Flappy from falling further. It will make Flappy play this little sound, which is SFX_hit, which sounds like a punch song, and then it will make Flappy fade out and then broadcast a new message signaling to the other sprites that the game is over. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to control, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until. So this second script will wait until Flappy touches the ground. So I'm going to go to sensing and I'm going to bring in touching. And from the drop down, I'm going to select ground. So wait until touching the ground. Now, after Flappy has touched the ground, we will make Flappy stop from falling any further, which is controlled by this variable vertical speed, because this other script controls how Flappy is going to fall. So if we set vertical speed to 0, then the y coordinate for Flappy will not change anymore. So Flappy will basically stop from falling. So I'm going to go to variables and I'm going to set vertical speed to 0. Then I'm going to make that punch sound. So I'm going to go to sound and I'm going to start sound SFX_hit. All right. And then I'm going to make Flappy fade out. And you know how we make a sprite fade out. Over a number of repetitions, we increase the transparency effect for that sprite. So I'm going to go to control, and I'm going to bring in repeat, and I'm going to say repeat 5. So I'm going to make Flappy fade out quite quickly. And from looks, I'm going to change the ghost effect, which is the transparency effect, by 20. So 5 times 20 is 100, which means that Flappy will become completely transparent. And after Flappy has faded out, it will broadcast a message so that the other sprites know that the game is over so they can start a new game. So I'm going to go to events and I'm going to broadcast and I'm going to create a new message. And I'm going to say new game. Now, when a sprite broadcasts a message, all the sprites on the stage are able to receive that message, including the sprite itself. So if Flappy broadcasts the new game message, Flappy is also there to receive it. Now, what shall we do when Flappy receives the new game message? Well, at the point that Flappy receives the new game message, this other script, the forever loop, is still running, which will make Flappy fall towards the ground. We wouldn't like that. So I'd like to stop the other scripts, for example, this forever loop, when we receive the new game message. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a new script with when I receive new game. So when I receive new game, I would like to stop all the other scripts from running and prepare Flappy for a new game. So I'm going to go to control and I'm going to bring in this orange stop block. And I'm going to select from the drop down the other scripts in the sprite. Now let's see the effect of these scripts in action. I'm hitting the flag again, and I'm going to hit the start button and I'm going to let Flappy fly once and then fall to the ground. Bang. So punch song, Flappy stays there and it disappears. It fades out. That's fine. Now let's continue. What should happen after Flappy stops all the other scripts when it receives new game? Well, we'd like Flappy to reappear at its original position, so fade in a little bit, and we'd like Flappy to float up and down as you saw in the original presentation of the game. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make Flappy wait for a second. Alright. And then I'm going to make it get back to its original position. So I'm going to duplicate these and put them here. Maybe with the exception of the set size to 50% because nobody's there to change Flappy's size. So we reset Flappy to its original position and making it point in the right direction. Now we need to make Flappy fade in. So I'm going to bring in repeat 10. And I'm going to make the ghost effect disappear. So I'm going to change the ghost effect by -10. So if I hit the flag and I hit the start button, notice that after a second Flappy reappears in a nice fade in effect to the center of the stage, to its original position. That's nice. Let's also make Flappy float up and down a little bit. So maybe something like a small animation, up and down forever. Alright, so I'm going to go to control and I'm going to bring in a forever loop. Alright, and I'm going to bring in 2 repeat blocks. So I'm going to bring in a repeat 10 and another one. So in the first 10 repetitions, I'm going to change the Y coordinate of Flappy by a very small amount, maybe even 1. And over 10 repetitions, I'm going to make Flappy float down. So I'm going to go to motion and I'm going to change Y by 1. And I'm going to change Y by -1 in the other repeat loop. So if I detach this forever loop, notice what's happening if I click it. Notice that Flappy floats up and down because the first repeat 10 moves Flappy a little bit up and the other repeat loop moves Flappy a little bit down. Alright, so Flappy floats up and down in this very nice flying effect. Alright, so let me reattach this. Now, as Flappy is flying, I would also like to make it actually flap its wings because it has the costumes to do that. It has a wing down and a wing up. So if we can cycle these costumes, we would create the impression that Flappy is actually flying in the air. So let me do that. I'm going to bring in a small forever loop from control. So I'm going to bring in forever. And I'm going to switch costumes and wait in between them a small amount. So I'm going to go to looks and I'm going to say switch costume to wing up. Alright. And then I'm going to go to control and I'm going to wait a very, very small amount, like 0.1 seconds, which is a 1/10 of a second. So a very, very small amount of time. And then I'm going to duplicate these inside the forever loop. So I'm going to switch costume to wing_h, which is the wing horizontal. This one, all right. And then I'm going to duplicate all of the blocks inside the forever loop. And we have costume wing up, wing horizontal, then we need wing down, and then wing horizontal again. So up, horizontal, down, horizontal. And the loop starts again. Up, horizontal, down, horizontal, and so on and so forth. So if I click this forever loop, notice that Flappy is actually looking like it's flapping its wings. So this is exactly the effect that we want. But we have a problem. How do we bring this forever loop in the other script? Because we already have a forever loop, and forever loops are terminal. They don't fit any other blocks. Now, I'm going to start this forever loop as a reaction to another message that Flappy will broadcast, and only Flappy will be there to listen to it. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to go to events, and I'm going to bring in this broadcast message right after the wait block. And I'm going to create a new message, and I'm going to call this message Flap Wings. And when Flappy is able to receive flap wings, it will start flapping its wings and cycling its costumes. Nobody else, no other sprite, will be there to receive flap wings because we aren't programming them to do that. Now, I acknowledge we wrote quite a bit of code, so let's recap what we have. When Flappy receives the start game message, which is triggered at the click of the start game button, we have two scripts running. This one, which is in charge of making Flappy fly and fall, and the other script, which will wait until it's touching the ground, and after it does, it will kick off the punch song, it will fade out, and it will broadcast the new game message. Now, as a reaction to the new game message, we have this script, which will stop all the other scripts, and after a second, it will broadcast flap wings. It will reset Flappy to its original position and its original direction. It will make Flappy fade in, and it will make Flappy float up and down with this forever loop. Now, as a reaction to the flap wings message, we have this little script, which makes Flappy cycle its costumes and create this effect that Flappy is actually moving its wings. So I hope all that makes sense. Let's hit the green flag and let's see Flappy in action. So we have Flappy static here, which is something that I don't really like. We'll fix that in a second. But after we hit the start button and make Flappy hit the ground, notice that it suddenly fades into the screen and starts floating up and down and flapping its wings, which is very nice. So let's fix the Flappy being static when we hit the flag. We need somebody, a sprite, to broadcast this new game message so that Flappy will start fading in and floating up and down and cycling its costumes. So I'm going to go to the start button, and when the flag is clicked, I'm going to broadcast the new game message. So when I hit the flag now, after a second, Flappy will start floating up and down and cycling its costumes, which is very nice. Now, at this point, Flappy is almost completely programmed, because once we hit the start button, Flappy is able to float up and down and fly and crash to the ground if we so wish, and after it crashes, it's able to restart at its original position, and again, floating up and down. So if I hit the start button, I'm able to make it fly, and after we crash, Flappy is able to restart in its original position and floating up and down. This is really cool. Now let's make the title and the start button also restart at reaction to a new game. So I'm actually in the start sprite, so I'm going to add another script with when I receive new game. And when I receive new game, I would like to show the sprite because we originally hit it when we clicked it. And we'd like to make the sprite fade in so that we can start a new game. So I'm going to go to looks, and I'm going to bring in the show block. And after a second, the same time that Flappy waits, I'm going to make the sprite fade in. So I'm going to go to control, and I'm going to wait 1 second, and I'm going to make it fade in. And you know what fading in means. Over a number of repetitions, say 10, I'm going to change the transparency effect by a negative number. So I'm going to say change the ghost, that is the transparency effect, by -10. So make it fully visible on the screen. And the exact same thing will happen for the title sprite. And the script is identical, which is a reason why I'm going to drag it and drop it onto the title sprite and let it go, which will duplicate this code for the title sprite as well. So now we have both the start and the title sprites fading in when we have a new game. So let's test it. If I hit the flag, we have both the start and the title being shown up, and we have Flappy flying, and when he crashes to the ground, all of the sprites appear on the screen, and Flappy happily floats up and down with flapping its very cute retro wings. And if I hit the start button again, Flappy is again able to float up and down, able to crash, and everything will restart. So the game can carry on indefinitely at this point. So we've done a lot in this video. I'm really happy. We've almost finished the code for Flappy, and we made the game carry on indefinitely. And we learned some awesome things along the way. We learned some complicated mechanisms with sending and receiving messages, and the fact that we can have multiple scripts execute at the same time when they start with the same thing. The next thing we have to do is to program obstacles, which we will do in the next video.